Hey, good morning and welcome to Techweek TV, brought to you by Callaghan Innovation. Super excited to have you joining us today. This session is going to be all about financial empowerment in New Zealand, and super excited to have Brooke and Sonya from Sharesies today. Great friends of mine and really excited about this topic. We're going to be exploring financial independence, financial empowerment, all of those words. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. So we've wanted to do this for a while. I've wanted to do this and just roped you into doing it with me. So can you tell me a little bit more about Sharesies, the company that you run?
Yeah, cool. So Sharesies is an online platform that makes it super easy to invest. Regardless of how much money you have, you can build an investment portfolio, choosing from a range of funds, and it's really just making it easy and as accessible as possible.
Awesome. And then, Brooke, how's it going so far?
Oh, it's going so well. So today we reached over 44,000 investors using our platform, and together they've invested around 52 million through our platform too, which is really exciting.
It's quite a lot
and
of
the
money.
team's grown heaps. From we 7 of us founded Sharesies, and now we're a team of nearly 30. And so yeah, it's just a blast.
How do you have 7 founders?
We're really fortunate, because we're like in a highly regulated industry in fintech, and so for us we needed to have the core skills and people that really cared about what we were doing right from day one. And so we're fortunate to have that with designers, developers, product marketing, finance, you name it, we've got it, which has been really beneficial.
Awesome. And then let's kind of deep dive on this topic. So, what does financial empowerment mean to you? Do you want to kick off?
Yeah, cool. I guess for me it's about having choice in life and having, the resources you want to make the choices you want and to live the life you want to lead. So it's really like a powerful message for me. I think it's around, choosing what I do with my time and with my resources as well.
Now, how long have you guys been going for?
2 years.
And I guess you would have quite a lot of sort of insights around, what are New Zealanders doing with money, and you would have done a lot of research. So, I mean, what is the state of play in New Zealand right now with investing and financial independence or even financial understanding?
Yeah, I'll kick it off, and Sonia will have heaps to add, I'm sure. But so when we started Sharesies, we started in October 2016, but we spent 6 months just doing pure customer research, really getting a deep dive into New Zealand's attitudes towards money, investing, and just kind of learning a bit more about a day in the life, so that we could really create a product that actually made an impact, a financial impact for them. So we spent heaps of time researching, and I think what was really important from that research that we found is that we saw 3 key barriers that stop people from being able to have access to investing, and we see investing as a key part of being able to be financially empowered. And so that was that they felt priced out. So in order to become an investor, you needed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, to get started. They felt jargoned out. There's so much jargon in this financial industry. It makes you feel like this isn't a world for me, or it's something I can't do, or I need to know heaps to get started. So we wanted to break down those barriers. But also a key thing we saw in the industry was that all financial companies really only care about the wealthy few. So they're all set up. Once you've got money, they've got their wealth management departments to help you out and people. But if they're really helping New Zealanders get on that journey of building their wealth, there's just a massive gap there. So we saw that we could make a change there. And then since, and we know in New Zealand only 20% of New Zealanders invest. And if you look globally, in Australia there's 30% of New Zealanders that own shares. And in America it's 50% of the population. So there's just massive opportunity here to help more New Zealanders get their money working better for them, but also for our economy and helping our businesses flourish. Yeah.
Money is such a personal issue, and it's one of those ones where money's a part of our everyday lives, but most of us have a terrible relationship with it in some way or form. And I think apart from like what money looked like or what financial being good with money looked like for New Zealanders was kind of having a pot of money in a savings account or having an investment property or having property. That conversation about investing in shares or investing with something, especially with little bits of money or big bits of money that aren't however you want to invest, hadn't really been part of our conversation. So I think there was just a little bit of anxiety or not really even knowing it was on the radar. So it's been really great over the past 2 years being able to make that a bit more of the conversation.
So I know that, like, with the companies who work with at Kiwi Landing Pad and just in general conversations, like Kiwis and even founders who money's part of their everyday in like terms of cash flow, revenue, raising money, even they don't like talking about money. So how can we kind of, I guess, why don't we like talking about money, and then how do we start talking about it in a constructive way so that we can kind of come together a bit more and be, more empowered?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, especially in New Zealand's culture. We really, money is so taboo, and that's something that at Sharesies we really want to try and break down. We go around the country doing these share clubs to help people feel like they can talk about money. And it's not about talking about amounts, you don't have to say I earn X or I've got this amount invested, but more about sharing those tips and tricks, because the more that we share that insight around money and share that knowledge, the more opportunities that we'll all be able to have around being able to generate our wealth. So we think that's really important, that we're helping to try and remove those barriers by making investing really fun and easy. And we're already starting to see those conversations happen. We hear about the families that sit around the dinner table comparing their portfolios and talking about what's happened in the economy. Like, how exciting is that? To friend groups. And I know this this group at a work place quite close by. Every Monday they get together and they chat about their portfolios, and it's a bit of competitive camaraderie, but also just sharing those insights. It's just really important that we start to just take that burden kind of feeling you have around money and turn it into a positive experience, because it's in everyone's life.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it starts really small, I think, like even just talking about your investment portfolios, and then recently some conversations have come up around like KiwiSaver, should you put more in it or less in it, and like everyone has their own way, and there's no right and wrong with money. I think it's just what's best for you, and I think the more times we talk about it and the more we discuss it with each other, we realise that's the truth, that there isn't a right way and a wrong way, and that's often what trips you up or makes you worried that you're doing it wrong.
This is actually something I've been exploring quite a lot, but I found it quite isolating, because I found that in my community I was deep diving on personal finance, so I wanted to go beyond being a wage earner and become a wealth accumulator as a female, or just like anyone, but for me it was quite a personal journey. So I started like trying to figure out the stock market, because I knew nothing about it, and then I made a decision and I told some of my friends about it, and then they made the same decision, and I was like, ooh, I made that decision and then you copied me, and then we had this discussion. They were like, oh, that was a really good choice, and it's been beneficial for all of us. But I was like, you know what you're doing and you copied me. That's quite cool. Quite empowered by that whole situation. So for people who haven't invested ever, who they might have a small amount of money that they can put away maybe every week, what are some practical tips on how they can get started?
I'd say pick an amount you're willing to start investing and just give it a go. Like, I think based on how much you're looking to invest, there'll be different options available to you. But for example, on Sharesies, the minimum investment is 1 cent. And so a lot of people kind of like start and then build it up as their confidence builds. But really the best way you can learn is through experience. And you need to kind of just get stuck in and do it, and that's the best way.
I'm actually a user of Sharesies, and I like it when I get my 2 cent dividend payments. And I guess because it's a principle, because if if you multiply what you actually have in the platform, and then you're like, oh, well, that could be 20 cents, or it could be 200 or whatever it is, and so it kind of gets you in this mindset of being like, that's how it works, that's quite cool, okay, then I'll allocate this amount of money and then that amount of money.
For me, it builds up my nerves of steel, so it's like, because it works as it goes down as well. When you've got a smaller amount in there, it might be like 20 cents down, but then as you add more money, it's like, oh, now it's $20 down, but you kind of have learned that it goes back up again as well, so it teaches you your parameters or your threshold.
Do you find that a lot of the people using your platform are more just playing for the long game? They're not really interested in the kind of day-to-day ups and downs. Like, they might watch it and be like, oh, okay, great, but then really they're just kind of leaving it in there for a bit? Yeah,
we're set up mostly people can trade once a day at the moment if they want, but really our philosophy is to build your portfolio one payday at a time with amounts that you can afford, and that is really how we design the platform and the ethos behind why we care, the way our investing philosophy essentially. So build one payday at a time, and Yeah, and I think, we see a lot of customers doing that, but also recently we just launched Auto Invest, so you can set and forget too. And so that's for people that want to have that strategy and then, not having to make those conscious choices every single payday.
Like Brooke kind of mentioned before about once you've got money, that wealth management space, having a lot of kind of resources available for you. But we really focus on the wealth development space, so that's why we're kind of built in that way. But we've got portfolios ranging from over $500,000 to, 1 cent. So it really works for whoever wants to invest like that.
Who's your youngest investor? You don't have to name them, but how old are they?
0.
Yeah, people can open accounts for babies.
I did think about this actually, where you know how in the States it's super common where people have college funds, and so I don't have any kids, but I have friends with kids that I'm super close to, and I was like, well, what if I just they're not necessarily the most well off, and there's quite a lot of them. I was like, well, I don't need all of this, so maybe I'll set up an account, and by the time you're 18, it might be like it would have compounded and done quite well, hopefully. Are you seeing more and more of that behaviour?
Yeah, so nearly a year ago we launched kids accounts, and so that's for any parent or guardian or any well-meaning adult to be able to set up an account for a child who's under 16, and so I've got an account for my daughter and also for my sister. So my daughter's 16 months, and so ever since she was born, I've been putting $5 away each week, and it's just incredible how much that adds up to. And I'm looking forward to the time when we can start having conversations, and I can tell her about what's happening, or she could be telling me probably. I just can't wait to. I wish I had that opportunity when I was that young. Yeah.
And she's like 2 or something.
Yeah, 16 months old.
That's quite cool. But I guess $5 is actually. Like, would you say it's an affordable amount, like weekly, and then that definitely would add up over time, which is quite cool. Yeah, okay. Kind of want to look at just a small glossary. So if you could pick like 5 jargon words that, and you can maybe do like 3 each or something, that people should just absolutely go learn. So like a dividend or, and do you want to share with them about it?
I think you should kick off with dollar cost averaging.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I think dollar cost averaging is one that kind of sounds scary, but it actually takes a lot of scariness away from investing for me. So that's when, instead of picking the price that you want to invest, you just spread your investments over time, and you keep buying the same amount of money, and then sometimes you're buying when it's high or when it's low, but over time it averages out.
And that's why you've done your auto invest, because it allows people to do that without really having to think about it. Okay.
And so that's a really good one.
I'll flick to one, exchange traded funds. So you might hear that quite a lot. ETFs, they're a bit of the darling in the investing industry at the moment, which is essentially exchange traded funds listed on a stock exchange. So in New Zealand, we've got a range of exchange traded funds listed on the NZX stock exchange. And essentially, the majority of exchange traded funds are passive. And what that means, so there's another jargon, is essentially it's passively tracking an index. So you've got the US, you might have heard say S&P 500, which are the top 500 businesses in the United States. In New Zealand, there's an exchange traded fund called the US Top 500 that tracks that index of the top 500 businesses in the US. So that's what's quite cool about exchange traded funds is that they, you're well diversified typically from the start. So you're not just investing in one business; you're investing in a range of them, and they can help you get that kind of global exposure too. So that's one. And then they've also got some tax efficiency sometimes in New Zealand.
What's another one? Dividend's a good one. So that is when a company chooses to pay. Might choose to pay a share of its profits out to its shareholders, and that's a special payment that goes. So that's some bonus money. So you can either make money from the price of shares going up over time, or through dividend payments.
And that's per share?
Per share, yeah.
Cool. Do you have one more?
Oh, what's another one?
Totally. Even an exchange, what an exchange is.
Yeah, true. So then NZX, which is New Zealand's stock exchange, is where you can essentially buy and sell shares in companies. So if you're wanting to buy shares in Spark, you can go through, you typically can't just go straight to the exchange. There's brokers that deal, that help you get access to those funds. So if you want to get access to Spark, and then your shares will be bought and sold through the stock exchange, which is pretty exciting.
Cool, okay. I guess, how are you guys having an impact so far?
Well, we want all New Zealanders to know that investing is accessible to them. And we also want to help create the most financially empowered generation. And so what we're working towards now is how do we help more and more Kiwis know that it's accessible to them and that it is something, anyone can be an investor. In New Zealand, the typical investors are male over 60 and live in Auckland. And we're changing that. If we've got 50-50 gender engagement on our platform. 80% of our customers are under 40 years old. We've got customers from 0 to 88 years old. We're really excited about democratising those opportunities for people to be able to grow their wealth. That's one of our missions at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the impact is having 44,000 New Zealanders having invested over $52 million. That really speaks to me about the impact around that money that probably wouldn't typically be invested otherwise. So that's really exciting. And we've also surveyed our base, and they talk about their confidence improving since using Sharesies, and that's always really inspiring too.
That's quite exciting.
And we've also, adding to the impact, I guess.
We really like the impact question.
Yeah, here we go. We've just written papers on the impact we create. We recently became a B Corp, and so that's essentially you're joining companies like Patagonia, Allbirds in New Zealand, Banker, Kogo, Yellow Little Bird. Sorry, what is it? Not yellow.
Little Yellow Bird.
Yellow Bird. I knew it was close. All of them have become B Corps, and essentially you're joining a community where it's quite a rigorous process, and you're strictly audited, and to really ensure that you are creating a business that is a force for good. And key categories like, for your people, are you a great place to work? Do you really care about your people? To your customers, do you actually care about the impact you have and the outcomes that you're creating in people's lives? And so it's really great to see that we became certified, because it's a real, honour that we've been able to, and I guess a proof point that we really are a business for good.
Yeah. So New Zealand, or for our generation, definitely we're going through a bit of a housing crisis at the moment, where it's fairly unaffordable and inaccessible to buy property, which has been a main method of generating wealth for New Zealanders. What do you think is changing in that space for us, and is what you're doing creating a solution to that potentially in the future? It's a bit of a hard question, but
I think there's lots of changes in that. One is lifestyle, where you don't whether housing not necessarily being part of your life if you don't want it to be, and so I think there's choice in that space. I think there's also a lot of around the developments of medium density housing and trying to make housing more affordable, and then I think there's also pieces around co-ownership or not having to own something 100% yourself. We see that with car sharing, all types of things, and so housing's going that way as well. But I think the main thing of how we help with that, so a lot of our customers have withdrawn their money to buy a house, which is a very cool of celebration moment. And so it's really around taking those big goals and making them achievable day by day, and making that feel very real.
Do you have anything to add?
It's quite interesting, because when we started Sharesies, there was in the paper, it was all, millennials are spending money on smashed avocado, that's why they can't afford houses, and all of that kind of palaver was going on. And I think when we started Sharesies, we also thought about how can we, we want to give someone with $5 the same investment opportunities as someone with 500,000, and access to funds is a really great way to start, and shares. But we've also thought about what else could we help people get access to. But it is great to see some startups in the ecosystem really getting into the space about helping people get co-ownership agreements together, and helping break down that home ownership. It's quite an exciting space.
Awesome. We've got about 2 minutes left. I would like to know, Where do you get your financial inspiration from?
My goals, I think, for me personally. Like if I'm thinking about what I want to, where I want, it's like, well, do I want to go on a trip? Do I, what is it that I want to be doing? And then that's what inspires me to kind of be better financially, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same. Like around just thinking, like for me, it's a lot driven by freedom, freedom of choice. I think I've said that word so many times today, but I think that's really like it's less about accumulating stuff, more about having what I need to be able to say yes at the right time or whatever I need to do. And so being able to share that's really important.
Having options, super important. And the last thing I want to do is if you could take 2 money myths and you could dispel them, one each, what would they be? Or like investing or finance?
So I guess, I don't know if this is a money myth, but one thing I discovered, I was like, oh. So I worked in banking for a while, and when I first went in there, I was just so shocked that you could negotiate on interest rates for term deposits and mortgages. I was like, how do all New Zealanders not know this? Like, this doesn't seem fair. And so I think, if you're out there trying to hustle a mortgage or a term deposit, I mean, just hustle. Like, the banks, they don't take the first rate.
Good advice.
Yeah, I think it's around the kind of idea that if you don't have much money, that you don't need to care about it or worry about it, there's not much you could do with it. Yeah. So I just think, like, one step at a time, learn something new. You can really, like, no matter what you've got, you can do something with it. So I think that's around it.
Cool. That's all that we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much for tuning in to Techweek TV, and have an amazing day. See you later.